I've been waiting to cover this video in the rebalancing series, the Brellas. Initially the weakest class in the entire game, it is now definitely the weakest class in the game, even if you count Tenebrella. So we got a lot of big changes lined up for this one, including a rework of Recycle Brella that gives it a second shield. So I think you guys are going to be looking forward to that. Subscribe if you enjoy, and let's get started. Let's talk about Tent first. It's perfect. It has a really good support kit. It has a really good aggressive kit. The weapons balance basically perfectly. They fixed pretty much all of the important bugs. Like, what more could they possibly do? It's literally perfect. We're good here. Okay, well, maybe not perfect. It does get a lot of bazookas. So, 200 to 210 on the second kit. Let's move on to the regular Brella. I think the main debate here is, should normal Brella get its old damage back? The answer is yes. Look, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that 90 damage Brella wasn't kinda broken for a little bit in Splatoon 2. But this was Splatoon 2, where you had stuff like ink armor and missiles that mitigated its worst matchups, stuff like blasters and chargers. And on top of that, in this game, it has a brand new class of poor matchups, being the Splatanas. Maybe bows could counter it. I don't know though, because the matchup of top level bows versus Brellas is basically non-existent. Between those classes, you could absolutely counterpick Brella, and there are plenty of viable good weapons to pick against it that wouldn't ruin comp building, but instead enhance it. Because of that, in my opinion, it's more than fair to give the weapon the extra damage back. Its shield is still a bit more flimsy due to how things can damage it a bit more, and without armor to give you that bit of extra boost, it's going to be a bit more difficult. Yeah, it has a very strong kit, but not a broken one by any means either. I think it would actually be in the perfect spot just having its old damage back, and it doesn't need to be reverted on any other changes. It does create a little bit more of a problem though when talking about Recycle, since that weapon kinda has Brella's old damage, at least the 91. But we'll get to Recycle later. I think for now, Brella should be returned back to its former glory. Like I said already though, it's basically got a perfect kit for it anyway, so it doesn't need anything in that department.
This is a stupid dope mix.
Undercover, on the other hand, is a weapon I think people are pretty familiar with in terms of it being bad. Yeah, the weapon could be a little bit annoying at times, but my god is this the most undertuned weapon in the series. So, screw it. Let's give this weapon some actual stats. We'll buff its shield HP from 200 to 250, its damage from 40 to 45, and its shield damage from 15 to 20, which will finally mean you can two-shot shield someone. In fact, you can do it with a little bit of breathing room too. This will make the weapon actually pretty good at 1v1s. It'll still struggle against some matchups, much like the normal Brella, but it should pose a threat to something like a shooter trying to challenge it without help from its sub-weapon. It also definitely just needs a better kit, and this is another candidate for a cooler weapon. Unfortunately, Torp already got taken, but since this weapon got its damage back already, let's try something new. We can go with Burst Bomb instead, a sub that would help its fighting capability even more while being something brand new for a cooler weapon. And with cooler, it would definitely be 200p, just to be safe on the output. I think this weapon would be more than capable of competing with the other options. These buffs might seem like a lot in retrospect, but screw it, I think this weapon really does need this much. If Kunder could barely keep up in Splatoon 2, a game with specials that favored how Undercover worked, I think it's going to struggle way more in a game with specials that are going to melt it even with a 250 HP shield. So I think this is really what it needs. Alright though, let's get to Recycle Brella. I've complained about this weapon a lot because really, I just don't like how the damage Vanilla Brella had got pasted onto this thing in exchange for having a horrible shield. The launch gimmick and fast respawn is legitimately really cool, but it's just so incredibly weak that it really needs some buffs. And initially my idea was just to do that, something like 150 shield HP, 300 when it's launched since it gets doubled. But I have a better idea. What if we enhanced its gimmick to be more distinct, since we did just move its damage back over to regular Brella? So that's what we're gonna do. Recycle Brella now has 2 shields. 2. You launch the shield and then you shoot again and you instantly have another one open. That's a huge change for the weapon, but honestly, I think it's fair. If you break a Brella shield, you'll still get a window to shoot it before it can pull up the next one. So you're not missing out on damage. And even shooting through 2 Recycle Brella shields is the equivalent of breaking an undercover shield, except again, it has to be flared to get the second one up, so it's not even going to be as good as that. Both of these shields would still regenerate, but they would be on separate timers. This is initially at 2.5 seconds, but considering you have 2 shields, I think it has to be toned back. I'll nerf it to 4.5 seconds for each shield. I think this would be fair because it is still pretty fast, especially to get one shield back, but if you want to utilize both shields, you have to have a little bit of downtime to wait for them both to come back, which feels like a fair trade-off. The final extra change in regards to shields is a change Undercover has. I don't think it should be stunned when its shield is broken. The Brella has so little HP that it honestly comes across as really annoying with how often its shield is broken, so I just don't think it's necessary. As for the damage, I still think it seems unique considering it has a little bit more range and tighter spread, but let's make it a little bit more distinct. I'll go with a nerf and a buff here. For the nerf, we'll reduce the maximum damage from 90 to 85. Considering the tighter spread and lack of pellet change in terms of the amount of damage each one does individually, this will be something that people barely ever feel, so I think it should still keep the insane damage. And to compensate, we'll give it 5% more range. I think Recycle can in particular struggle against mid-range matchups even if it does have an extra shield, so I think improving this slightly is very important for it. And finally is another kit. Let's go with Torpedo and Inkstorm. I want to give one of the Brellas Inkstorm, considering just how well holding up its shield synergizes with Rain as a special. And I think Torp would be a bit different on this. It could kind of function as another weak shield, but also something to help out with damage a bit, giving it unique combos. This definitely still feels like a glass cannon weapon to me. Even with 2 shields, they're incredibly flimsy and weak, but the weapon now actually has the ability to make some insane plays if unchecked, which I think is important for Brellas. All of them should be tricky 1v1 weapons. They should be stuff that feels like you need a team effort or other resources in order to take down. And because of that, I think this change is still more than fair. And honestly, I think even Recycle Brella's original kit would be much more solid with these changes. 2 shields gives you a lot better of an opportunity to set up Bubble, and Bubble has a lot more impact with the extra range and shields the weapon can now use with it. And so with that, I think we're good for the Brellas. Let me know what you think of these changes in the comments below, and I'll see you all next time.